Oh, hello. So, I am still not up for camera, lights, camera, action, but I am definitely feeling a lot better, and I am hoping that I will be back on your screens with my face soon. But for now, I thought I would do a roundup of what I read in April. I did a lot of writing in April, so I kept my reading mostly pretty light, I guess with some notable exceptions. I have, let's see here, three books I'm not going to talk about because they're going to show up in a vlog at some point, but they were Capitalism and Disability, The Origins of the Family, and If They Come in the Morning. Those were heavier books for sure, but most of the rest of my reading was pretty light. So I think I read 15 books in total. Yeah, that looks right. So we'll just get into it. Let's start. Well, 5 of the books I read were the 5 books in one series. So maybe we can start there. I read the entirety of the Calhoun series from Nora Roberts, which are Courting Catherine, A Man for Amanda, Susanna's Surrender, For the Love of Lila, and Megan's Mate. So these are category suspense romances from the early 90s mostly. Megan's Mate came a few years later in the mid-90s. But these are all pretty standard paranoras, I would say. There's like a ghost who is inhabiting this family home in Maine, in Bar Harbor. It looks like a castle, but it is very dilapidated because the family who has the house has fallen on, less than ideal times. And there is a legend that the great grandma of the 4 sisters who live in the house with their aunt, their great grandma had a set of famous emeralds that went missing the night that she allegedly took her own life. And they're trying to figure out where the emeralds are, what actually happened that night, because it seems like the great grandma was leaving her husband for her lover, who was a local artist. And then in the current day, the house is being targeted by a hotel magnate for acquisition, and he is high-handed and awful. So I would say overall, I really like the family dynamics in this one, but most of the romances were not my favorite because they just were so of their time. And also, I should say, even when I'm complaining about high-handed Nora Roberts heroes from the 80s and 90s, please understand that hers are still so much nicer than many, many of the men in these books in this era. So, this is not on the extreme end of what this kind of trope was doing, but it's just not to my taste. So I would say if I were recommending it, I would tell people to skip the first 2. The first one is Courting Catherine. She's a mechanic. He's the hotel magnate, and he's just a jerk, and I don't enjoy him. But, it sets up the series. I think you can infer enough in the later books. You don't really have to read this one. I gave that one a 3. A Man for Amanda is the worst one. I gave that a 2 because the hero is the architect that the hotel guy has hired. They work out that they're going to divide the house in 2. Basically, half of it is going to be a hotel. The other half is going to be, the family residence. And the architect he hires is just the worst. He comes to Amanda's workplace and assaults her. But it's like DubCon. I don't know. It's not for me. Did not enjoy that. So those 2 I would say skip. I would say start with a third one, which is For the Love of Lila. Her hero is a professor who gets hired by bad guys trying to get the emeralds to help them do research. And when he finds out what's going on, he jumps off the boat that they're on. He hits his head, so he has amnesia. She's helping nurse him back to life. He's much more of a chill dude. So I would say start with that one. Susanna's Surrender, I gave that one a 3.5. Susanna's Surrender, I gave a 3 because the hero is a little high-handed, but it's not as intense as the others, and it kind of rounds out the initial storyline. So I think that one, was worth reading. And then I think the best of them is Megan's Mate, which takes place after the kind of main plot. And it's well, I don't want to spoil how she's related to the women. So, but she comes into the picture and she ends up having a romance. It's more of a slow burn because of her background. The hero is kind of high-handed, but like he gets that she's had, a tough time of things and he needs to not be as pushy. So that one I think was the best. I gave that 3.5. So like I said, I like the family dynamics in this. Nora Roberts always does a great job with sort of found family. They are fixing up a house, so you get some of that, reno porn that she does such a good job of. But it's not like my favorite. I would give this a 3-star as a Nora Roberts series. So I binged that. Let's see. I read 2 arcs. One was A Long and Speaking Silence by Nevo. This is the next entry in her Singing Hills cycle series, which has become kind of my go-to comfort novella series that I read and keep up with. I just really love this series. This is basically a prequel, and I will say I would not recommend you start with this. I think that this is a book for people who already love this series. It is maybe the weakest in the series. I don't know. It's interesting. Like, it's good. I gave it 4 stars. I think if I was being more objective, it might be closer to like a B+, which would be a 3.5. But I just love Claire Chi. But I wouldn't start with this. But if you like this series, I think you'll enjoy seeing Claire Chi in their earlier years, kind of before they have some experience under their belt. They get themselves in a little bit of a pickle and lose their money, so they're kind of stuck in this town, working at this restaurant to make some money to kind of be able to start traveling again. And it's really a story about refugees and immigration, and it was very moving and very poignant for our current moment. So I enjoyed seeing Almost Brilliance and Claire Chi and some of their dynamic, obviously, but then thematically this was just very relevant and sad and moving and good. So yeah, I don't think Nevo has missed yet in this series. It was poignant. I enjoyed it, but it did make me sad. On the other end of the spectrum, the other arc I read, I would say is probably my favorite thing I read this month, which was A Cute Little Murder by Molly Harper. This is this was an arc, but it also, I think, has come out since I read it. So I think you can read this now. I thought this was just so fun and such a good version of the kind of cozy mystery that I can get down with, where it's not twee, but it has that emphasis on kind of the character side of things and character dynamics, and it has a certain kind of lightness of touch to it. So our main character in high school was in a kind of notorious high school sleuthing duo. Maybe the way to think about this is if it was the Scooby-Doo gang, but it was only Daphne and Velma, and our main character is Velma. She's kind of the brains behind the operation. Her counterpart is more the camera focus, knows how to do the marketing, definitely has some sleuthing instincts of her own, but is much more the face of the operation. And we see kind of their last caper as the opening scene. And then we cut to when they're adults, and our main character has totally gotten out of that kind of sleuthing, but she is still a forensic accountant, so she still, is investigating stuff. But she's in need of money for reasons that, kind of develop. We find out more about that as the book goes on. But her old partner has had this career in sleuthing and has been, has her own show on something kind of like a court TV type thing, but has gotten herself into a scandal and is going to do this special on this cold case that will hopefully kind of like revive her career or like, change the narrative that's going on. So she agrees to come back for the money. It's set in this old hotel that these tech bros have just bought who are huge fans of the work they did when they were kids. So they're along for the ride. And there's supposed to be this speakeasy in this hotel that nobody knows where it is. There's a famous cold case associated with it that they're going to try to solve. And kind of sleuthing ensues from there. There's a romance, which I think helps, or like a flirtation. There's romantic tension that helps keep it lighter. There's a lot of exploring of the old hotel, which I thought was so fun. It really leaned into the sort of like sleuthing Scooby-Doo aspect of it, which really worked for me. So I think some of the writing is not like, how to say, Molly Harper, I would say, has a very specific writing style, and I do like it. I think it's very competent. But I wouldn't say her characters feel like fully fleshed out, like real characters, if that makes sense. It almost feels sort of like screenplay-esque in that way. Like on paper, the characters make sense, but I wouldn't say her writing style lends itself to like feeling deeply immersed in the characters. So there's that, but I found this to be a really delightful mixture of things that I enjoy. It had the Scooby-Doo element. It is an isolated closed circle mystery because it's on an island and they get cut off. So it was just like lighthearted mystery shenanigans. And that just was what I was looking for. So I gave that 4.5 stars. This is one of my favorite things I've read this year, and I think it was really fun. So if you're looking for something that's light, entertaining, fun mystery, I would recommend. Okay, I'll talk about the 2 books I read for book club. One I read for the March book club. We always meet the first weekend of the following month. So I read this like the day before book club. And then I actually read the next one in time for our May meeting. First one, Secret Lives of Murderers' Wives by Elizabeth Arnott. This is not one I would have picked up without it being picked for book club. And I can't say that I loved it. I think it was... I think I'm between a 3 and a 3.5 on this one. I think I'd probably give it a 3. It's fine. The premise I think is interesting. It's a coalition of women who have the shared experience of discovering that their husbands were serial murderers. And I think that's an interesting idea of like, that really would raise some questions about like trusting yourself and your own judgment and like, how did you not know? Like, I think that's an interesting framing. I think the idea of them working together is interesting. And they're trying to solve a serial murder that's going on in LA. It's set in the 60s. I would say the main way you know that it's not contemporary is that there aren't cell phones and that everybody is smoking. I would not say that it is immersive into the setting, really. So, that I don't know was that great. I think it was like well written, but also like it kind of ended up being neither fish nor fowl. Like it's kind of a literary novel and it's kind of a mystery thriller, and it ends up not being like that great at either, because I think that it doesn't explore the interiority of the women as much as I would have wanted it to, for it to be like more literary. But it also isn't that satisfying of a murder mystery / serial killer thriller type book. So I'd give it like a 3. It was fine. We had good discussion about it at book club. Like, I think it's a good book for book club because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. But I didn't really, I don't know. I think that she just didn't go far enough with it in any direction. Like, it had a lot of interesting ideas, but like it just didn't do much with them. Yeah. So yeah, not a book I would have picked up, and not necessarily one that I loved, but like I enjoyed the discussion around it, so I'm not mad about the experience overall. And then the other one I was planning on reading anyway, I was planning on making it a library book, and if there hadn't been book club, I would have felt better about this as a library book rather than, buying it new as a hardback. But it's a very anticipated book, which is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark, which is a nom de plume for V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark writing together as a pair. This is very page-turning. I found this highly entertaining, and I think if I hadn't been going to book club where I knew I was going to talk about it, I might have ended up enjoying it more. But because because I was thinking about it more deeply for book club, I ended up being like, there are some problems with this. So the setting is such a me setup. Okay, it couldn't be more up my alley. It is isolated closed circle mystery. It is set on an island, a Scottish island, an old house of an author who has recently died. Nobody knows this author has died, but his agent and publisher have arranged for several writers, kind of like mid-list writers, to come finish the ending of this final book in a very renowned series. Maybe think of if George R.R. Martin died at the 90% mark of the last book of Game of Thrones and they were trying to find someone to end off the series so that people would be satisfied. That's kind of the setup, but except it's a thriller series, literary mystery, literary thriller. So very fun premise. It, like I said, very page turning, very entertaining. I think if you're looking for just an entertainment, this was good. I think though, it's as a murder mystery, very insufficient. I can't really get into why because it would be spoilers, but I would say the mystery part of it, not very successful in my opinion. I think the character work was really good. Succeeded in having one of the most hateable husbands I've read on page in quite some time. Hated this guy. Very successful in making me hate him. So I think the character work was good. And the thing it's most successful at, and I think its energy, is really around critiquing the publishing industry. I think that is very enjoyable part of the book. Though I would say I think Yellowface did some of these critiques better. And also had some more layers to it in terms of there also being sort of this racialized element of Yellowface and how the publishing industry treats non-white authors. So, but I think that was an interesting theme and definitely where the book was most interested in. I think marketing this as a mystery is setting up people who really love mysteries to maybe not be that into this, because I just think that it's not very fresh in terms of the mystery component. I could sit here and list in the last few years 5 books that are the same or similar premises that I think are better done. I think The Writing Retreat is more interesting. That's a similar vibe. Now that one's very divisive, I know, but it's at least more interesting. That Andy Pelago book that came out last year, I forget what that was called, but that one I think is a very similar setup and I would say is a better mystery. I don't know. There's just been, also, the Susan Ryland trilogy from Anthony Horowitz that's come out in the last few years. There's a lot of books that are in the mystery realm that have been treading over these same ideas that I just think are more interesting, or they came out before this and therefore felt fresher when they came out, and this now kind of feels like it's late coming to the party, if that makes sense. So not a bad book, and I would definitely, if you like this kind of story, I would say it's worth reading. It was very, like I said, very page turning, very entertaining. I just don't know. It's interesting to me that the marketing of this was we came across this idea and we were we have to write this. I think I was just expecting something more unique or innovative, and that's just not what this is. It's kind of treading over things that they've been happening for a while. This, to my delight, the isolated closed circle mystery has been very popular as a trope in mystery thriller in the last few years. Love that. Appreciate that. But that just means that there's been a lot of these coming out. So that just means the book didn't feel as fresh as I think the marketing wanted me to think it was. And maybe the freshness really is just hey, V.E. Schwab is co-writing a mystery. Isn't that fun? Maybe that's the freshness we're supposed to feel. I don't know. Anyway, I hope that made sense. I would give all that to say, I'd give this a 3.5. I think it was fun. Maybe 3.5 or 4, depending on the day. It was well written, entertaining, but just not really breaking new ground, I don't think. At least in the way that they I think, wanted me to feel like it was. Okay, and then what else have I not talked about? Oh man, I still have 3 more. Okay. Everest Mountain Guide by Guy Cotter. This is a part of research for my writing. I gave this 3.5. He's got a long, it's a memoir. I wouldn't really recommend this unless you're into mountaineering memoirs. He's got a long history of climbing, from the 80s through to today. I think he's in an interesting position because he ended up taking over Adventure Consultants after Rob Hall died in the 1996 Everest disaster. So that is an interesting angle and gives him an interesting perspective on some of those events. So, yeah. Only if you're deep into mountaineering memoir territory like I am these days would I recommend that one. The Murder at World's End by Ross Montgomery. So this one actually I think is a better isolated close circle mystery than The Ending Writes Itself for sure. I don't think that, so this is the start of a series. I'm not interested in continuing in the series. Like I wasn't connected enough with our characters that would continue on with it. But I thought that this was a really fun, historical, isolated close circle mystery. It's set in the early 1900s. I forget when exactly, the teens, the 20s, somewhere in there. And it was the last time the Halley Comet came through and everybody thought the end of the world might be coming. And our main characters are at this remote estate that's on an island, cut off from the world. The proprietor of the estate is convinced that this comet is going to pass so close to the earth that it's going to start an apocalypse. And so he's like gathered everyone together and wants to like batten down the hatches to survive and like, you know, emerge once the dust settles and rebuild from there. And then a murder happens. I thought that the character work was interesting. I thought that the solution was, satisfying. It's a well done, isolated, close circle mystery. Like this is the kind of thing that I'm like, yes, good job, competent, as it should be. This is hitting the beats of that trope pretty well. So, not that, like, I gave it a 4-star. I think it's a very good version of this kind of mystery. Not one that I, like, was obsessed with or anything, but I think it was a good version of what it was. And I liked the historical setting component. I thought that was fun and a unique spin on things. Yeah, and like I said, it's the beginning of a series, so if you happen to connect more with the main characters than I did, you have more of these that are coming, and it seems like they will be good. It seems like a competent, well-done, beginning of a series. Okay, and then let's end with, what have I not talked about? Oh, The Marquis Who Mustn't by Courtney Milan. Well, that's kind of a anticlimactic ending because I thought that this was fine. I'd give it like a 3.5. I definitely was disappointed in it compared to The Duke Who Didn't, which is the first book in this series. Probably because I was going into it, I should give it a 3.5. Let me establish that. It's a good book. It's a B+. It's just, it goes back to her being a little more angsty than the first book was, and I was hoping this whole trilogy was going to be more lighthearted than what she normally does, and the Marquis Who Mustn't is a little more angsty. So it is a fake relationship / actually a real relationship trope. The main characters are a dude who's come back into town to like make right on something his father did when his father, absconded years earlier with him. And he was engaged, like there was an arranged marriage between him and this woman who happens to encounter him in a train station and is like, basically asks him to go along with a ruse that she's pulling off because she wants to enroll in this ambulance course to become like an ambulance nurse, and she needs the permission of her father or male protector, and so she's like, this is my fiance, go along with this, and she doesn't know that they were actually engaged as children. yeah, so then things kind of ensue from there. There's sort of, it's just a lot of feelings, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a miscommunication trope exactly, but like he is putting a lot on himself in a way that no one else around him is really expecting him to. Like he's bearing the weight of what his father did in a way that he doesn't really have to. And I mean, like, it's a romance, so he eventually realizes that too, and, happiness ensues. But it was just like, there's a lot of emotion. It's sort of like that meme from Trixie Mattel in All Stars 3 of like, that's a lot of emotion for safe. That kind of was how I felt about him, of like, it's a lot of emotion that you just like don't need to have, and you are very deep in your feelings. So that kind of took away some of my enjoyment. But as always, Courtney Milan is just a great writer, great themes. In this case, I learned about a unique kind of Chinese pottery, which was fun. So good, but a definite step down for me from the first one. There's one more book in the series, so I'm hoping that it'll get back to being a little more lighthearted and, rompy for the finale, but we shall see. Okay, I think that is my wrap up, guys. Like I said, I'm hoping that I will be able to, I could be on camera now, but I just am like, why do that when I don't feel great about it? So hopefully I will be feeling great about it again by the end of the month. I'm hopeful. I've got a little, treatment thing that I'm hoping will wrap up my swelling and I will feel back to normal. So yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. Not totally sure when I'll be back, but hit the bell and you will know when I know. Take care of yourself, take care of your community, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye.